While the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, and the Russell 2000 took a breather and snapped 5-week winning streaks, there was one industry that actually did pretty well this week, and that was the cannabis stocks. And those stocks have really struggled over the past 6 to 8 months. There's been very little life in these until this past week. Now let's talk about what is driving the cannabis stocks right now. And check it out right here. You're going to see cannabis stocks take off on legalization hopes. And why? Because you have a Republican representative that's about to introduce legislation into the House of Representatives. South Carolina House Rep Nancy Maida to schedule and regulate the federally illegal substance could be a game changer for the cannabis industry. Now, what makes that such an interesting situation is that there's a lot of states that have already legalized it, but it's not legal from a federal level. And so what this legislation would actually do is clear the hurdle for a lot of these cannabis stocks to start providing this on a nationwide basis and do so in a legal way. Check out on MSOS, look at the volume that's been pouring into this thing. I mean, that is a lot of volume that you're seeing pouring into this stock here over the past week. That tells you right there that there's a lot of investors that are starting to rotate back into cannabis stocks. And it wasn't too long ago that we saw some major rallies in November and December and on to January of this past year. Went from 20 all the way up into the 50s. Another one that I really like is MJ. And that one has gone from $10 and $11 a share all the way up to 35. Pulled back to 13 and 14 as recently as this past month. And now it's back up 15 and a half, seeing some good volume flowing in and a sizable rally. So what I'm going to do in this video is I want to explore the technical patterns that are emerging in a lot of these cannabis stocks and what we should be doing as traders to capitalize on this move that's starting to unfold. Make sure though to hit the join button below to get all my market research each and every day. You're supporting the YouTube channel by doing so. You'll get my watch lists on a daily basis. You're also going to get the most intriguing charts that I come across each and every day, as well as FANG stocks and market updates. First, let's look at MJ. Like I said, massive decline off of the February highs, and the selling only accelerated in recent months. But check this out. You have actually a nice base that's starting to form in MJ. And I really like that. It actually broke out of it this past week. So on this breakout, there's a couple ways you could play it. If you think that there's going to be a retest of the breakout level, that's fine. Now, it may continue to rally without you. And if that happens, then there's other cannabis stocks that you can probably still capitalize on. But on this particular one, if you can get back in at around the 1495 level, that would be great on any kind of a retest. On the flip side, if you start to get in around this 1530 to 1550 level, then you're going to have to put the stop loss below these recent lows here. Now, the big thing here is how much of a stop loss that you're having to put on here. If you're getting in around 1550 and you're putting a stop loss at 1420, then you're looking at almost a 10% stop loss. That means you've got to base your position size off of your risk tolerance of how much you're willing to lose from a dollar standpoint. And if 10% is too much, then you need to take smaller position sizes. And it's worth noting too, cannabis stocks are very volatile. They trade in similar ways to biotech stocks in terms of how much that they can move on a given day. So you want to make sure that when you get into the stock that you're using a position size that you can manage without the emotions taking over your decision making. Tilray is another one, very popular, double bottom right here. And I really like this. I mean, you have the first bottom and the second bottom, and then you've got the breakout level right here. It broke out of it in a similar way. Stop loss probably needs to go below the 1155 level. Just like with MJ, you want to make sure that your position size is dictated by the amount that you're able to handle from a risk standpoint. And with Tilray, yes, you're starting to get into a pretty big stop loss there of over 10%. So you want to make sure that whatever position size you take on, that you can handle those kinds of swings in your portfolio. Look at this move in CGC. I mean, look at how bad this move has been. I mean, no love for the stock at all until recently. And you get this huge volume spike that's the biggest that we've seen since the highs achieved back in February of this past year. So let's see what it looks like on the daily chart now. A nice base that is formed and it's willing to break out at this level here. A base that is formed and it's also breaking out. Big move there. And again, you can try to see if you can get a retest of this breakout level. A lot of stocks will break out and retest that support level before bouncing substantially higher. So you can do that and look at the volume again. Big on the daily as well. If you can get in at this retest, all the better, because that makes the stop loss a lot more manageable, makes it to where whatever position size you take takes a lot more emotion out of this trade with a bigger position size. So I would be putting my stop loss below the lows from Wednesday of this past week here. If it breaks below those lows, I want to go ahead and step away because I don't know if it's going to go ahead and make new lows on the chart and wait for it to find a better ground or footing to be able to make that rally. Because sometimes you got to remember, these rallies on news sometimes it can be a 1 or a 2 day rally, and then all of a sudden it just goes right back to where it was trading at before, because the news doesn't really build on itself and really lead to action. And in this case, it would be lifting the federal ban on cannabis stocks. If that can happen, if that legislation that's introduced gets passed, yeah, I mean, I think you're going to really see a good rally in these cannabis stocks, but that has to happen as well. If the action that we're seeing right now doesn't lead to further action and something that's signed into legislation, yeah, then it's probably just going to pull back because nothing's really changed. GRWG, you have a triple bottom here that has formed of late. You have your first bottom, the second bottom, and the third bottom, and they've held each and every time. That's a good sign of a strong base that's forming. Triple bottoms, they're kind of rare. They don't happen a ton. So when you see one, it's a really good sign that there's a good base that's forming. Plus, you have a clear breakout level. This is actually one that has not broken out yet. And that's a good sign for those who haven't gotten long on any of the cannabis stocks yet to wait for this one to break out before finally getting long. So you can get in at 25.88. And it's too early to say where to put that stop loss at, because it may not just break out right away. It may go up here and it may consolidate some, and it may provide a better opportunity to put a stop loss below a better key level of support. So I'm holding off on saying where I would put a stop loss at on GRWG, because it just hasn't formed one yet, because it hasn't quite broken out yet either. ACB, I really like this chart a lot. Inverse head and shoulders pattern. It's broken out. Major move though. I mean, this is probably one of the more volatile ones that you can trade. Making a move that was comparable to CGC this past Friday. Left shoulder, then you got the head. And then you got the right shoulder. Breaking out above it. Testing that 200-day moving average. Like to see that one clear out. But if it pulls back, it's probably going to come back to this $8 level. I would not chase this at this point here. That's a big move to go chase. Very difficult to manage the stop loss on it as well, because you're talking about a 20% stop loss. And at that point, no, can't do that. So if you can get it to pull back, maybe it's worth playing the bounce off of this support level. And then I would be willing to give it a try off of this support level. But I need to see it pull back before I can go ahead and take a stab at ACB. Now, remember, when it comes to these cannabis stocks, we got to make sure that we're not just blindly getting into these things without any way to manage the risk. I talk about this in every one of my videos. You have to manage the risk in all of your trades. You've got to know where to get out before you ever get in, because this may not materialize into the huge rally that a lot of people are wanting it to materialize into. But there's a good sign that there is the potential for a solid rally going forward, because we have the news events that's backing it. You have the volume that's pouring in. You're seeing a lot of big money rotate into these cannabis stocks. And if the wheels keep turning in the favor of the bulls here in the weeks that follow, then you could have some sizable gains. But even when you get the gains, you got to make sure that you're managing the profits as well. You got to make sure that you're raising your stop loss, taking some profits along the way, because just like what we saw in February, when these pot stocks peaked out before, it came right back down to earth. So there is precedent for caution in our trades in the cannabis stocks, because you want to make sure that just because you might be in the beginning of a liftoff here, you don't want to be pushing the envelope too hard to where you think that you're going to make more money than what's even possible in these stocks. Instead, manage the profits. Take half off the table if you start getting some sizable gains, and let the rest run, but try to secure the profits in your capital along the way. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to like and subscribe. Please do that, because I do a couple of these videos each and every week. I want to hear from you guys, what you have to say. Also, make sure that you're listening to my live streams that I'm doing throughout the week as well. Let me know down in the comments below, what are you trading? Are you trading the cannabis rally here? Do you think it has more room to run? I want to know all about it down below. Thank you guys, and God bless.